Here's something almost nobody tells you. You don't have to cut carbs to fix your blood sugar. The fastest way to bring your numbers down isn't about eliminating food groups, it's about adding the right ones back in. I've watched this happen hundreds of times in my own practice. Patients who add specific foods to their daily routine see their numbers shift in days, not months. And the change holds, not for a week, but for months, sometimes years, often without needing additional medication. In this video, I'm walking you through 10 foods that retrain your biochemistry at the cellular level, reverse insulin resistance, and bring your blood sugar down, quickly, naturally, and in a way that actually sticks. Before we get into food number 1, if you want more videos that explain the why behind your body instead of just handing you a prescription, hit subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments what your fasting number was this morning. I read every comment, and it genuinely shapes what I cover next. Let's get into it. The hormone nobody explains to you. Here's what almost never gets explained in a rushed 12-minute office visit. High blood sugar starts upstream with a hormone called insulin. Insulin is the key that unlocks your cells, so glucose, the sugar floating in your bloodstream, can get out of your blood and into the cell, where it's actually used for energy. After years of blood sugar spikes and crashes, your cells stop responding properly. Insulin knocks. The cell doesn't open the door. That's insulin resistance. Your pancreas compensates by pumping out more insulin. Your blood sugar keeps climbing anyway. And the standard response is often another prescription, pushing even more insulin into a system that's already overloaded with it. That's not a conspiracy. It's just how a rushed, volume-based system works. There's no time in a 12-minute visit to explain how food talks directly to your insulin receptors. So I'm Dr. James Revelio, and every food on this list does one of 3 things. 1, it slows down how fast sugar enters your bloodstream. 2, it cools the chronic inflammation that makes your cells deaf to insulin. 3, it wakes the insulin receptor back up so your body does the job it was built to do. You don't need to start all 10 tomorrow. Add them gradually over the next couple of weeks and let them stack. Let's start with the first one. Number 1, fenugreek seeds, small, hard, amber-colored seeds you'll find in the spice aisle of almost any grocery store for a couple of dollars. Don't let the unfamiliar name fool you. This is one of the most underrated blood sugar tools on the shelf, and it costs less than your morning coffee. Here's what it does inside your body. Fenugreek is loaded with a soluble fiber called galactomannan. When it hits water in your stomach, it swells into a thick gel. That gel physically slows how fast carbohydrates move from your stomach into your small intestine. Slower movement means glucose trickles into your blood instead of flooding it. No spike, no panic dump of insulin. Fenugreek also contains an amino acid that helps your pancreas release insulin more efficiently and helps your muscles absorb glucose more effectively. In my own patients, I've seen fasting numbers improve within 1 to 2 weeks of consistent use. How to use it? Soak a teaspoon of whole seeds in water overnight. In the morning, drink the water and eat the softened seeds before breakfast. If the bitterness is too strong, grind the seeds and stir half a teaspoon into yogurt or sprinkle over eggs. Start small. This fiber is potent, and your gut needs a few days to adjust. 2. Ceylon Cinnamon. You probably already have cinnamon in your cupboard, but the kind matters and most people grab the wrong one. Standard grocery store cinnamon is cassia, which contains a compound called coumarin that can stress the liver in large daily doses. What you want instead is Ceylon Cinnamon, sometimes labeled true cinnamon. It's milder, safer for daily use, and the one I recommend to my own patients. The active compounds are polyphenols, plant chemicals that behave almost like insulin itself. They help your insulin receptors grip glucose more effectively and slow down how fast your stomach empties after a meal. Research from the USDA's Human Nutrition Program found that less than half a teaspoon a day meaningfully lowered fasting glucose in adults with type 2 diabetes. How to use it? 1/4 to half a teaspoon of Ceylon Cinnamon daily, stirred into oatmeal, coffee, or a smoothie. Pair it specifically with carbohydrate-heavy meals. That's exactly when you want your receptors gripping harder and digestion slowing down. 3. Broccoli sprouts. Not full-grown broccoli, the tiny 3-day-old sprouts. Miss that distinction, and you miss almost the entire benefit. Broccoli sprouts are loaded with sulforaphane, and they contain somewhere between 50 and 100 times more of it than mature broccoli. Sulforaphane does something none of the other foods on this list do as directly. It acts on your liver to quiet down overnight glucose production. Your liver manufactures sugar while you sleep, and in insulin resistance, it tends to overproduce, which is exactly why so many people wake up with a high fasting number despite not eating anything overnight. A 2017 study out of Lund University in Sweden gave concentrated sulforaphane to people with type 2 diabetes and found measurable reductions in fasting blood sugar, with the strongest effect in those whose sugar was hardest to control. How to use it. Grow them yourself in a jar on your counter for pennies, or buy them in the produce section. A small handful, about a quarter cup, on a salad or sandwich most days is plenty. Eat them raw or barely wilted. High heat destroys the active compound. 4. Avocado. Most people avoid avocado because of the calorie count, and that fear is costing them. The fat in avocado is monounsaturated, the same family as olive oil, and it's one of the most blood sugar-friendly fats you can eat. Adding half an avocado to a plate of rice or toast doesn't remove the carbohydrate, but it slows down how quickly it turns into blood sugar. The glucose rises gently instead of spiking. Over time, monounsaturated fat has also been linked to improved insulin sensitivity, meaning your cells respond to insulin signal faster. In my experience, this is one of the easiest habits to build because it makes meals more satisfying, so you're less likely to reach for a snack an hour later. How to use it? Half an avocado a day is a reasonable target. Add it to eggs, mash it onto whole grain toast, or pair it with a starch-containing salad. Anywhere there's a carbohydrate on the plate, avocado softens its impact. 5. Chia seeds. Tiny, gray and black, and they punch far above their size. If you've ever watched chia turn into pudding when soaked, you've already seen exactly how it behaves in your gut. Chia is one of the richest sources of soluble fiber available. In your stomach, it forms the same thick gel we saw with fenugreek, wrapping around carbohydrates and slowing their absorption to a crawl. The result? A slow, steady glucose release instead of a spike and crash cycle that leaves you shaky and hungry an hour later. Chia also contains a plant-based omega-3 fat that helps calm the low-grade inflammation sitting underneath insulin resistance. Cool that inflammation, and your cells start listening to insulin again. How to use it? 1 to 2 tablespoons a day, stirred into yogurt, mixed into water with a squeeze of lemon, or blended into a smoothie. Let it sit for at least 10 minutes to gel, and drink plenty of water. That fiber needs liquid to move through your system properly. 6. Fatty fish, salmon, and mackerel. This one doesn't work by slowing your meal down. It works on the root problem, the reason your cells stopped responding to insulin in the first place. Insulin resistance is driven largely by chronic low-grade inflammation. Year after year of quiet inflammation physically interferes with the insulin signal at the cell membrane. Salmon and mackerel are rich in 2 omega-3 fats, EPA and DHA, among the most powerful natural anti-inflammatory compounds known. They calm inflammatory signaling, support a healthier cell membrane, and help the insulin receptor function the way it's supposed to. In 15 years of practice, the patients who eat fatty fish twice a week consistently show calmer, more stable blood sugar numbers, along with better blood pressure. How to use it? 2 servings a week, roughly palm-sized each. Wild salmon, mackerel, sardines, and herring all qualify. Bake it, grill it, or buy it canned. Canned mackerel and sardines are some of the cheapest, most powerful foods on this entire list. 7. Walnuts. Of all the nuts, this is the one I point patients toward first, because of what it does for both your blood vessels and your insulin simultaneously. Walnuts are rich in polyunsaturated fat and the same plant-based omega-3 found in chia. That fat supports the health of your endothelium, the thin lining inside your blood vessels, one of the first things damaged by high blood sugar. At the same time, the combination of fat, fiber, and protein in walnuts blunts the post-meal blood sugar rise and has been associated with lower fasting insulin, the number that reflects how hard your pancreas is straining. How to use it? A small handful, about a quarter cup or 7 to 10 whole walnuts. As a snack instead of crackers or a cookie turns a sugar spike into a flat line. Stick to raw or dry roasted, skip the candied or honey-coated versions. Use them to replace a processed snack, not to add on top of one. 8. Whole eggs. For years, people were told to avoid the yolk, and that advice pushed many towards sugary breakfast cereals, which are far worse for blood sugar. Let's correct that. A whole egg is almost entirely protein and fat, with virtually no carbohydrate, so on its own, it barely moves your blood sugar at all. But the real benefit is what's known as the second meal effect. Starting your day with eggs instead of toast or cereal stabilizes your blood sugar not just at breakfast, but all the way through to lunch. You arrive at your next meal with calmer numbers and a smaller spike. The protein and fat also keep you full longer, which quietly eliminates the mid-morning cravings that send you toward the cookie jar. How to use it? 2 to 3 whole eggs in the morning is a solid target for most people. Scramble them, boil a batch ahead for the week, or fold in some spinach. Top with the avocado from earlier, and you've built a near-perfect blood sugar-friendly breakfast. Number 9. Apple cider vinegar. This one has the fastest visible effect of anything on this list. If you have a glucose meter at home, you can watch it work tonight. The active ingredient is acetic acid, and it does two things at once. It slows down how quickly your stomach empties, so carbohydrates enter your bloodstream gradually, and it helps your muscles pull glucose out of the blood to use as fuel. Research led by Dr. Carol Johnston at Arizona State University found that a tablespoon of vinegar before a carbohydrate-containing meal lowered the after-meal blood sugar spike by roughly 20% in people with insulin resistance. How to use it? 1 tablespoon, always diluted in a full glass of water, 10 to 15 minutes before a carbohydrate-containing meal. Never drink it undiluted. The acid is hard on tooth enamel and the throat. Important, if you're already taking blood sugar medication, talk to your doctor before adding this, since vinegar combined with certain medications can lower blood sugar faster than expected. 10. Lentils. Lentils are a carbohydrate, and they'll still help lower your blood sugar. This is the food that proves the entire point of this video. Lentils combine a slow-digesting resistant starch with soluble fiber and a solid dose of plant protein. That combination means the glucose inside the lentil releases into your blood slowly, over hours, instead of all at once. Lentils also carry their own second meal effect. A bowl of lentil soup at lunch helps keep your numbers steadier into the evening. Clinically, swapping white rice or potatoes for lentils a few times a week is one of the most reliable ways to bring down an A1C, your 3-month average blood sugar. How to use it. Half a cup to a cup of cooked lentils a few times a week. Use them in soups, stews, or a cold salad with olive oil and a splash of vinegar. They're filling, inexpensive, and stretch a meal further than almost anything else on this list. Donna's story. Let me tell you about a patient I'll call Donna. She was 63, recently retired, and came to me frightened. Her fasting blood sugar was sitting around 180, and her doctor had just told her it was time to add a second medication. She didn't want to climb the medication ladder for the rest of her life, and she was scared because she'd watched her own mother lose her toes and eventually her eyesight to the same disease. We didn't cut her carbs to 0. We added eggs and avocado in the morning instead of cereal, a tablespoon of diluted vinegar before her larger meals, lentils swapped in for white rice, walnuts instead of an afternoon cookie, fatty fish twice a week, cinnamon in her coffee, and broccoli sprouts on her lunchtime sandwich. Within the first week, her fasting numbers started moving. Within 3 months, working closely with her own doctor, she came off that second medication entirely, and her A1C moved from the diabetic range back toward normal. 2 years later, it's held. She didn't starve herself. She ate more food, just the right food, and her own body did the rest. Why this works when cutting carbs alone doesn't. Here's how it all connects. Every one of these foods hands your insulin its job back without starving you. The fiber-rich foods, fenugreek, chia, lentils, slow glucose absorption so your pancreas never has to panic. The fish, walnuts, and chia cool the chronic inflammation that was jamming the insulin signal in the first place. The cinnamon and vinegar act directly on the insulin receptor, helping it grip glucose again. Do that meal after meal, day after day, and the cell that stopped answering the door slowly starts opening it on the first knock. That's what reversing insulin resistance at the cellular level actually looks like. And once that shift happens, your body holds your numbers down on its own, which is exactly why Donna's results lasted 2 years and counting. One important line. If you're currently on insulin or a sulfonylurea, one of the older blood sugar medications, these foods can lower your blood sugar enough that your existing dose may suddenly become too strong, which can push you into a dangerous low. Add these foods gradually, with your doctor monitoring your numbers, and let them adjust your medication as your body improves. Never stop or change a prescription on your own. Bring this list to your next appointment and work through it together. Tonight's plan, 5 steps. 1. Tomorrow morning, swap cereal or toast for 2 to 3 whole eggs and half an avocado. This single change shifts your blood sugar for the entire day. 2. Tonight, soak a teaspoon of fenugreek seeds in water and drink it first thing tomorrow morning. 3. Buy Ceylon Cinnamon, not cassia, and start with a 1/4 teaspoon a day in coffee or oatmeal. 4. Before your biggest carb-containing meal tomorrow, take a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar diluted in a full glass of water, 15 minutes ahead of time. 5. This week, swap white rice or potatoes for lentils at least twice, and put fatty fish on the menu 2 nights. Stack these in gradually over the next 2 weeks. You're not removing the foods you love, you're adding the foods that protect you. Now, everything we covered today helps bring your sugar down during the day and after meals. But a lot of you have told me the same strange thing. Your highest reading of the entire day is first thing in the morning, before you've eaten a single bite. You fasted all night, and your sugar went up anyway. There's a specific reason your liver does that overnight, and a way to shut it down. I made a video that explains exactly what's happening while you sleep and how to wake up to a lower number. I'll link it right here on the screen. Go watch that one next, and I'll see you there.